Good morning, everybody. What goes into making comics? Like, how many people are involved in that thing? And just one book alone, there's got to be probably 1,000 people involved in it. But more importantly, like, does it take to get a comic book done, from pencils to inks to colors? We're going to find out today. Glenn and I are going to go through the breakdown of what we believe makes a comic.
Welcome to the Comics Unlimited podcast with your hosts, Glenn B. Fleming and Ted Davis.
Hey, good morning. How you doing? Or good afternoon.
Yeah, good morning to you. How are you? Okay.
Good. Let's give a few minutes, get everybody in here. First off, we want to tell everybody that we're part of the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. So check out everything we're doing 7 days a week. We're a group of creatives that help creatives build their business. So check out everything we're doing on Facebook under Rising Tide Broadcast Network. Thursdays are fun, right? Because we start out with comics. We end up with comics at the end with Comic Book Spectrum. So
we try to.
Yeah, we try to. We see what we can do here. We also want to talk about Cashman Comics in Bay City. John's been great about sponsoring this show, and make sure that you say hi to Petey. If you're even on the website, I think they got pictures of Petey the guard dog too. So check out everything. If you're a comic book collector, check out what John does, because he can get you just about anything and ship it. At least in the States, statewide. So check it out. Everything he's doing at cashmancomics.com. All right, we'll keep that up there, and anybody has any questions or want to look it up, go ahead and do it. All right, cool. So what are we talking about today, man?
What makes a comic?
Yeah.
What the input is in there, how many people are doing stuff, and if you think of creators writing and drawing their own stuff, there's still a lot of people behind the scenes, printers, editors, delivery people, anybody who gets the coffee type of thing. Everybody, there's thousands of people.
People that don't
unsung heroes,
right? Or people that don't deliver the stuff that they're supposed to when they're supposed to. Those are companies, though.
That's called the post office.
Well, I say good morning to Pete Ryan's in the house, and so is Lewis Bright Raven. We got a few people falling into here, so but we'll get, like I said, it's early. We'll get a couple cups of coffee here, and we'll figure out what the game plan is for today. I mean, years ago, when I first started collecting, it's a lot different now. I mean, the paper qualities now, just the way the books are done, it's amazing the quality that's in hand. Really, when you think about it, on demand, even the things that we're doing with Comics Unlimited, it's amazing what's there. A lot of the stuff years ago, literally, I would just crumple up my comic book, put it in my back pocket, and get on my bike and ride. That would be, not thinking that they would be worth what they're worth now. But go ahead.
I didn't crumple my comics up. I used to look after mine because I used to keep them, and I still have a lot of them. But I'll tell you this little story. We had an English teacher called Mr. Warm, as in hot, right? Mr. Warm.
Yeah.
And I was in the schoolyard one morning.
His first name was Luke, right? Luke.
I can't remember his first name.
Luke Warm.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean. And
sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're in the schoolyard. Go. Right.
And I had, I think it's Spider-Man 49, and it's a John Romita cover with the lizard on it, a yellow cover.
Okay.
And he saw me reading this, and he asked to borrow it. Anyway, so I let him borrow it, and 3 weeks later,
damn,
he gave it me. Well, I asked for it back. I saw him every day, I just thought he'd give it me back, because how long does it take to read a comic book, Anyway, 3 weeks later, I said to him, "Sir, can I have my comic book back, please?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I've got it here." And he bent it in half. He'd creased it in half. So I had to go and get another one, because I keep mine neat. But there you go. So don't lend your comics to anybody.
Let me ask you that. We'll get more into comics in a second. When the one thing that used to tick me off when I was a kid was when I would draw something and then somebody would draw on top of it.
Yeah.
Did that ever set you off?
Yeah. When I was 17,
yeah.
I was an adult. I'm at art college,
Yeah.
And I'm drawing some. There was a guy. He was called Kirby, Pat Kirby, the teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And he brought it one day. He used to do illustration with him, and he brought a box of chickens' feet. You know, when you pull the tendons and they do that.
Yeah, yeah.
He brought
Gross.
all that. He brought all that, and we had to draw them. So we're drawing these things. We're drawing in pencil. And do you know what he did? He came to mine. He was going through mine, and he licked his finger, and I said, I don't believe you did that, because it was all smudged. And
Yeah.
he said, I don't believe I did it either. And we sort of walked away. And I thought, well, that's no good. I've got to do the bloody drawing again.
See, that he's not the same one that took the comic book and folded it, is he? God,
No.
you got a bunch of crappy teachers, man. Jeez.
Other than that, both of them were okay.
God.
I couldn't believe it. I've never done that. Even when I was a kid, I never, licked my finger and rubbed it.
Yeah,
but yeah. People do draw things. Yeah,
yeah. I know. And I mean,
my brother used to rip them up when I produced comic books. So
nice guy. Well,
he's all right.
They're that was one thing with the newsprints that we used to have in the interiors. That's really I miss those days. We used to have the rags, the paper rag. But today it's an amazing feat of what can be done on demand. It's a crazy amount of technology, the inks, everything. But really, when it comes down to it, when it's all said and done, it starts out with pencils, or it did back in the day. Everything, Jack Kirby would pencil everything. I mean, literally everything. Just with what was it? With the HB, did he use?
I think he used a 2B.
2B. So not the blue ink, none of the blue letter, or any of that stuff. So when you look at it from a standpoint of how the basics of it, whether it was Mickey Mouse starting out, whatever, Charlie Brown, any of these, they all started out literally with pencils on paper, very tactile, very, traditional in nature. But when did you really think about production of comic books? Like when you started looking at lettering and looking at,
again, it's back to the mid '60s with the Marvels for me. When the credits were listed. Up until then, we had Superman and Green Lantern and all that DC stuff.
Yeah.
The Marvel stuff before that, which I didn't look at so much, was mainly monster stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now looking back, it was Kirby and Ditko, but I didn't get that. I used to get Superman because I like Kurt Swan's art.
Yeah,
but I didn't know it was Kurt Swan then. But I could recognize the style. It was only later when Stan Lee started putting credits on that I realized the process of how these things happened. Because I used to think that Kurt Swan did the lettering as well. Why not? Why wouldn't he? He was, that person. I thought, not Kurt Swan, I thought that person who produced that comic. I'd see Gil Kane. I'd see Gil Kane, that I only found out was Gil Kane, but I'd recognize that style in Green Lantern. I didn't know his name, but I thought that the artist just drew everything and the word balloons, because it was obvious to me, even at 10, that the lettering was hand lettered. So I thought, well, why wouldn't the artist do it all? But I knew they drew in pencil first because I knew the process, because I'd done it myself, even at that early age. Because the pencil is probably the best thing to draw with. I don't know if there's anything else to draw with. I suppose it depends what you're doing, but a pencil and paper, to me, as I've said many, many times, and is an incredible. The pencil is an incredible tool. It really is an extension of the person.
Sure.
A computer is, but less so. There's no intimacy with the computer, I don't think, than you have with a pencil and a piece of paper. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, next to the wheel and being able to the written language.
Yeah,
I think the pencil goes hand in hand with the written language, really. So I mean, that's absolutely.
Well, don't forget,
probably next to the wheel, a pencil is probably the most innovative.
If you think about it, I'm not sure. I don't think anybody's really sure when the wheel was invented, but I think that drawing was probably around before then. Because
you can see it on the stone. You can see it on the stone caves. Right?
Yeah, that thing in France where there's the hands on the wall and those drawings of the wildebeest and all those kind of things.
We'll be talking about this a little bit, Ryan, at the end of the show. But Glenn's got some big stuff happening this week. So okay,
so it's just so as I would imagine that the man's greatest achievement was probably standing upright, but that was probably an evolutionary thing. He probably didn't do that on purpose. But yeah, drawing with a pencil to me, I've just been drawing this morning again. I've been inking, I've been colouring.
Mhm.
I can't understand why anybody would want to give it up to a computer just because it's faster and all that. I don't get it. Part of the art of drawing is not spilling the ink over everything you've just done. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we've talked about that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Well, I think that whoever came up with the idea to put a book together, really, if we go back even further, before the Bible, before the Tao Te Ching, everything, you
Yeah.
have these. Who had the idea of putting papers together to make a piece of technology that you would basically transfer a mind to a mind, really, when it does,
I
when you
think
think about it.
that goes back a long way, doesn't it? Because that's like when they used to write and draw on
On tablets.
and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a way of recording, because we like to record what
Correct.
we've done.
Just
We
like
like to show
photographs,
off.
yeah, or whatever. Yeah.
We like to record. We're trying to. I think we're trying to give the universe a sense of us being here.
Right.
Because
Well, and I think probably, I mean, more practically, we probably just got tired of having to tell the story over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, my buddy Pete's on here. He is like, I think, the best, and I've been trying to get, you guys can all jump in here too. Pete Ryan is the best storyteller, I think, that I know. He is by far. You would have a YouTube channel that would have 100,000 followers with the stories that he tells, the way that he tells them. Oh my God. But he would even get tired of telling the story. He would say, just leave me alone, read the book, that kind of stuff. And that's probably what happened. You probably had our great grandparents and that just hated telling people the story.
Yeah. Well, it shows you all the processes are the same, because if you tell a story, if anybody tells us, if something happens to somebody on the way home from work or school or whatever they've been to, they'll tell the story, whether it's funny or bad. They'll tell the story, and then tomorrow they'll tell somebody else, and they will embellish it. And we all embellish it. And along the way, if we tell it long enough, it's not the story we started with. So if you look at a comic, you've got an idea in somebody's brain that somebody draws in pencil, and then Joe Sinnott will come along and embellish it and make it look twice as good as it did. But it won't be what was there in the first place.
Yeah.
Although elements of it will be. So it's quite interesting that a conversation with somebody or a story that you relate to someone will change, and that's what comics do. They change, even though a good inker or embellisher will not obliterate the pencil work underneath,
like we talked about on the last couple shows ago.
That's the same with the story. We add things. There were 2 people, and then there were 4 people watching, and then there were 15 people there.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Okay, we had our bot. We must be doing something right. We got a couple bots on here. So, okay. Anyway, okay. So to get the idea down, to get the story down, to get everything working into a comic book format, who was the first person to put a comic together? Mainstream comic. It was Action Comics, or was prior to that? Probably prior to that. But
I'd say it was the first cartoon that we have is Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, but he didn't publish that, but probably would have done if he'd have had time.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. Action. Well, no, comics have been around since 17 something, haven't they?
Okay, yeah.
So you're thinking American about Action comic. I mean, look at all the what's that Wonderland thing that guy did in 1901? What's that called? Little somebody had adventures in not Alice in Wonderland. Something I can't remember what it is, but that's 1901, so it's at least 100 years, 120 years old.
Okay, so. But with it, though, the technology has been the same, whether it's binding or whether it's stapled, whether it's however, it's in a book format. Very simply, I think it's the greatest technology because it's still true today. We've got a lot of things you can read on, that laptops, tablets, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the technology of a book, it's crazy.
Yeah. And we're tactile creatures. We like to hold things, and and. We just like to do that, which is one of the reasons why I can't understand why people want to produce work like that on a computer, because you can't hold it. I mean, I've got this book, this Watchmen book here, and it's look at the thickness of that.
Yeah, no,
it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, but I could get that online, and I could just scroll the pages like they do with those neat little page turner things, and it's not there.
Well, and I think that too. I mean, all due respect to your generation, that's and mine too, for that matter. I mean, I'm amidst hundreds of books in here. That's just part of it. I mean, I know the next generation is just easier for them. That's it. They scroll through it. That's what they do.
Yeah.
You're just of that generation. That's cool. That's the way you did it. I mean, you're from the generation like I was, the Dewey Decimal System. I mean, if you said that to somebody today, my kids don't know what the hell I'm talking about. What a Dewey Decimal System is. They have no idea what that is. The cards, and having to look up the thing, where it is in the library. They have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I grew up with pounds, shillings, and pence as my money.
God.
And feet and inches.
Did Caesar have his stamp on it or no? That was a few years before you, probably.
What?
No comment? Nothing?
I said one or two.
Okay. Okay, so let's get back to the books.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
we start out with pencils. Okay, so
well, we start out with an idea, don't we? First,
correct.
You've got to know what to draw.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
And so from that point, we've got conglomerates. We've got people that you've got an artist, you've got a letterer, you've got an inker, you've got a company that produces the thing, publishes it. Before that, you didn't. And I think that you're seeing that, like, some of the artists did all the stuff at the beginning, like they used to do, kind of like what we're doing now. There's a lot of us that do a lot of the stuff on our own, which I think is kind of ebb and flow of the technology and of what comic books are today. But we have a better end result as far as the production of it, the book, the quality of the book. Not always, but for durability's sake, for durability's sake.
I think we're crossing two things here.
What?
The production, the paper is nicer and the printing's slicker and all this kind of thing, but it doesn't make the comic better.
You can shine a turd up, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I know, and that's art's subjective too.
Yes. Yeah, but some art is just so bad. Well, there's no subjectivity about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, there is. There is some terrible art, but there's also it's the person that put that time into creating it. That's what I think about versus the art itself. And that's where I think people get lost. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's crappy. No, it's, somebody took time to build that, to make something there. It's just how you look at it, but
you're more forgiving than I am.
Well, you're a baby boomer. Anyway.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, it has everything to do with it.
You're obsessed. You're obsessed with my age.
No, you are. Okay. Anyway,
I'm not.
So I'm not obsessed. I'm only off from being a baby boomer for maybe 5 years. So I'm a Gen Xer just by 5 years, but I want to hear about it. Okay, so that where are we going? Okay, so the story itself. Yeah. Then we've got the production. There wasn't really a production team back then. It was just, I think, the owner of the company, the owner of the publishing, and the artist, right?
Well, I think one of the first teams was Kirby and Simon, they used to put together and sell cartoon strips to the syndicates and the newspapers and all that kind of thing. And then I think Martin Goodman, wasn't it? Wasn't he a magazine producer, Martin Goodman? He fell into the comics thing because it was booming at the time. Yeah, because basically money. Yeah, because of the Superman, Batman thing of the 1940 and all that. And then Kirby and Simon came along and produced Captain America and all those kind of things. But they worked on it's quite ironic because Jack Kirby said to me that he didn't want to work like his father did, which was his dad was a tailor. And he said they used to have these big long tables, and somebody cut the legs and somebody cut this and at the end of it, one end of the table you had a big pile of material, and at the other end of the table you'd have a pair of trousers. Right, and he didn't want to work like that.
Right.
But then I thought I didn't say anything to him, but I thought, well, you did, because you used to rough in the drawings. Joe Simon would letter it, you'd ink it, Joe would ink it a bit, somebody else would ink it, and then at the end, Stanley had erased the pencil. Well, that's a production line, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, in its simplest form. Yeah.
Yeah. So he did what he said he wasn't going to do. I think he meant make trousers.
Maybe. Do you think that there's I would think that there's probably more people now working on one comic book for, say, from start, production, paper, everything, getting the paper to the printers, whatever, to finally getting it on the shelf for sale? Do you think that that's probably a true statement today versus in the old days?
I'm not sure about that, but because it depends whether you mean the actual process of producing the comic. Are
From
you
start
bringing
to finish, artists, product itself,
right?
publishing, getting it out to the stores,
Yeah,
distribution. I
yeah,
mean,
because the distribution will be worldwide now, so yeah, more people will be involved. Yeah, yeah.
even though we have printers and we have everything else, these unbelievable printers that can staple and everything else that they
Yeah.
didn't have, back in the 40s, even the 50s for that
Well,
matter.
60s, I think, as well. But
Really?
yeah. We were earlier. We were talking about the newsprint aspect of all these things, and how you
Yeah.
and I both miss that newsprint type
Yeah.
of thing,
Yeah.
because
The
it's
smell,
like
everything. Yeah. The
everything.
smudging
Yeah,
on the
it's
hands.
like
Yeah.
and the miscolor printing as well,
Yes.
off register.
Absolutely.
It all adds to it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what that did. That educated me, that off color, that off register, because I saw yellow, and I
That's
thought
true.
like most people do, I thought it was pink, but it's not.
Right.
It's magenta.
Yeah.
It's magenta, and it's not blue. It's cyan.
Yeah.
And I asked my dad, who was a wise man, I said, "Why is that got yellow to the side?" And he said, and he told me, he didn't know a lot about printing, but he knew a bit, and he told me that it was a misregister, that the print in four colors,
Yep.
CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black.
Layers. Yeah.
And with black, and I looked it up, and I'm only young, I'm only 10 or 11, 12, but I wanted to learn a lot of things. I've read a lot of books. I want to learn about everything. So I got books out from school library about this kind of printing process. And I found out things out like the black plate would always print last, because that will print over any edges of the run or anything.
Right.
But I said to my dad, why didn't they stop it when the printing press was coming off? And he said, because by the time they stopped it, they printed 50,000 because the machines were going that fast.
Yeah, it's pretty smart for not being being into printing.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave that up there for a second. So okay, so yeah, but newsprint in itself, right there. We're in the States right now. We're going through kind of not an epidemic. We've already been through pandemic. God, we're still going through that a little bit. But as far as the paper shortage, that's a huge thing. And as far as newsprint goes, I mean, I remember vividly as a kid, paper drives when I was a kid. They would, all the newspapers we would recycle, put them in these huge semi trucks. It was a huge event. I don't know if you guys remember all those. I don't think.
Well, that's why they used to call them pulp, isn't it? Because they used to pulp them. Like anything not sold or returned was pulped.
Yep.
And all that, and in the 30s, all that stuff by the Conan guy, is it Robert E. Howard, and all that kind of all those kind of writers would produce pulp novels,
right?
Because they were printed on the crappiest paper,
right?
And they would all end up,
Well, even these comics that we were talking about early on, they were, and everybody knows this, they were just, to be thrown out. They weren't. It's like read them and toss them. That was the thing.
Well, I remember reading. I think it was John Lennon. He lived in Liverpool, as you know. I was born in Liverpool, and that's a big port. That's the same as New York. It's the same kind of vibe. And he said in one interview, he was talking about stuff, and he said that his first sort of awareness of the United States was comic books and records, because the ships used to use old comic books as ballast.
Yeah.
So the guys would get them, just throw it on the quayside, and he'd pick, the kids had just helped themselves, and they'd never seen these comic books before. And then they started bringing records over, and Little Richard and Elvis and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so in the production line, as far as the paper, then to the artist, the story, like we talked about.
Yeah.
The layouts. Okay, so do you remember the first time you really started studying layout versus any of the rest of it? Or
the first time I saw evidence of a layout was when Kirby was doing Shield, and it said layouts. And I asked my dad what that was, and he had a rough idea, and he told me. But I didn't really see any pencil work by an artist probably until, I don't know, maybe the mid 70s. Actual pencil work.
Got it.
which was a revelation, seeing this stuff.
Because you've only see it in
Yeah.
finished print.
And,
yeah.
and then when
understand
I started working in art studios and advertising and this kind of thing, which was basically my career,
Yeah.
I became a layout artist. I would draw covers of magazines for the photographer to shoot, and I would go in with 20 ideas with a different, just draw the different layouts. And that was a layout. And I learned that way. I learned by doing it, really, because it wasn't so clear what it was.
Baptism by fire is a very good way to learn. Good morning, Joe D. Just want to say hi to Joe. Let's see. Well, we'll get to that question in a second. Good morning, David. We'll do it right now, I guess. That's why we got water damage comics back in the 60s in the UK.
Yeah. Just the ballast.
Well, since we're talking about pencils, let me put a couple of these things up, since we got a couple of photographs or a couple of pics that we want to bring up. Since we're talking about Watchmen.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
That's by Dave Gibbons, obviously, of Watchmen, and we've got some samples to follow this, where when I do layouts, as maybe you'll show, I don't do them as good as that. That's brilliant to me. It's not finished, obviously, but it's a
seasoned person.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity to that. You know exactly what's going on. But he's even put the lettering in, because he lettered this series. He's a good letterer. He designed the logo. He designed everything, which is why this series is one of the reasons why it's so good.
So
that's
Go ahead, fire away.
That's one of mine from the Black Diamond. I don't know about the green. Something happened with the scan. But you can see what I've done there. On the right-hand side, you've got the layout, and that text isn't the final text. That's just me putting the text on.
Right.
But you can see what I've done. I've plotted it out, and you can see basically it's just giving me an idea. Now, when I go to my own pages, and if you gave me something to do, I would ask you. But when I go to my own pages, I can change this.
Right.
But basically, that shows you what I do. You've got the obviously the rough drawing on and you need to know where I put the text in, because it was I needed to find space
you gotta look,
for it.
You're laying it out. Period.
You've got to it's got to be composed and all that kind of thing. And then you just go into when you do the drawing, you just go into the detail and the color and everything.
Finish it off. And that's it's like when you're writing too. I've done that in writing, to where you edit while you're rewriting. I've done edit upon edit, and it's the same idea. What about this one here?
This one is from something I'm working on now called The Amazing Mr. Kuiper, and this is just the same thing again. On the left, you've got the rough, and then you've got the pencil work and the inking, and through to the color finished job. But it's like the chicken and egg thing.
Yeah,
you could say that last panel is the most important, because that's finished. But if you didn't have the first one, you wouldn't get to that one. So it's all as important as each stage is just as important as the next.
I think so too.
Yeah,
or
the one before.
Up.
Yeah, so you just build it up. But doing the layouts is quite a different process than obviously doing finished artwork.
I agree.
Now this is Dave Gibbons again from Watchmen, and what Dave Gibbons does is, if you read this book, I urge everybody to get it. But what he does quick layouts, as you can see on the left, and he blocks it. He puts in his blacks with a felt tip. And then what he does, he squints at it, and he can see. And if you squint at it now, you can see where he's going with it, because he's highlighting features on it, and he's also, as you can see, placing his word bubbles as well.
Bubbles around, right, as part of
which is important
composition.
But the whole thing, and then they look on the right, and there's the finished, gorgeous artwork. With all the coloring and everything. But Dave Gibbons is so good. But you can see. You can see he doesn't deviate much from his actual layout. Because your initial layout is going to be your best layout, probably.
It's
probably. There's always an exemption,
Sure. Now, do you think that with editing, do you think that the layout should be? Well, it probably was, because the publisher had the last say in it, right? Like, I think Kirby and Stan go back and forth like that, or did they? How did that work out?
I don't know, but I get the impression that Kirby was so good he didn't need much editing. I think there was probably a few things where he would change it, but I don't think there was. But I think people like him and John Buscema and John Romita are so good, that basically what they put down was probably the best you were going to get, and there was no need to change it because they'd followed either the brief or written the story themselves. But with Dave Gibbons on those pages, he was getting extensive scripts from Alan Moore. I don't know whether you've seen an Alan Moore script.
Alan's his own. Yeah,
he's brilliant.
He's a genius. He's a genius.
He describes the birds singing in his backyard while he's doing it, that kind of thing, which I think as an artist, to somebody like me, I think that'd do my head in. I'd want some input. But Dave Gibbons does do a lot of input. He could have done more, I think.
Yeah, and there's the one thing that I really, really liked about when I was learning about comics was when they would give you not the Marvel method like we talked about in another video, but they would give you like a breakdown of like the sketches of certain characters or certain things. They would give you another tidbit of, not necessarily how comics were made, but maybe a layout, maybe like you were saying with pencils and that. And I'll bring up one of the modern ones that I'm looking at now, which is just incredible. I think that you're really going to dig it. So if they've got, do you think that there was a problem in production for comics at a certain time? Say, for instance, during the 70s, during the 60s, do you think that it changed from newsprint? I mean, it did. I mean, I remember newsprint one day and then it didn't in newsprint.
I think the comics medium grew up and was accepted as an art form rather than just something for kids. Because I've always thought, I mean, as far back as I can remember, that comics is it's like a slur on what's being produced, and people think comics. What do you do? I'm a comic book artist. They think you're drawing for kids.
Yeah,
I don't think. Well, no, that's not. I want to say I don't think I've drawn anything for kids, but I have because I've done children's books. But it's a different thing. But I think there's a stigma attached to it, and that's a shame because it is a valid art form, comics and sequential art, and has grown and grown and grown. But I think in the 70s it basically grew up, or was allowed to grow up in terms of production. And then you've got things like comic shops coming into, direct market shops coming in, and they wouldn't want to sell juvenile stuff. Maybe they wanted more adult themes, and it's like we said before about the chicken and egg.
Who's got the cash
together.
Who's got the money?
Exactly.
You got, people are getting older. They're, they've been following these things. I mean, they're guys our age are the ones throwing down the big cash. I mean,
that's right.
So I don't know. Okay. So as far as production value, I think that, I mean, they've been stapling books forever. They've ended up doing binding books forever. They've been doing, whatever, however it is, whether it's glued or stapled, whatever. The next thing, as far as layouts and everything else, when you're putting a book together, would be inking or lettering. What would be how would go first? It would be
well to me, it would be lettering to go straight on the page.
Okay, and then, but again, that's different than inking, though. That's another person. I've seen some comics that have 12 people on it before it's even out the door.
Well, don't forget, as I was saying about Watchmen, Dave Gibbons is a fantastic letterer. Dave Gibbons could work in comics as a letterer.
I think so.
And he's a good inker as well. He's not only a good pencil, he's a good inker. And that's what's unique about that. One of the things that's unique about Watchmen is that not only did he pencil it, he inked it and he lettered it.
Yeah.
He didn't have time to color it. So John Higgins colored it. So because he would have done that. Because Dave Gibbons is like Kirby. Kirby would have liked to have done more color work.
Yeah.
But he was just a pencil. Well, not just a pencil, but they just he had that much work to do.
He did so much.
And
the
could
volume
make so
of work.
much money. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was earning a good living, and and if he, but if he'd have had the time, he wanted to ink it and color it. I don't think he was wanting to letter it, but he wanted to do the full thing, which is what I do and what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not such a control freak that I won't let somebody have a comment on it, but I like to do those things. I like to do the different disciplines. Yeah. It's nice. I mean, today I've been coloring and penciling. Tomorrow I'll be inking. It's nice to have a different job on your table.
I agree with that.
I mean, unless you're as good as Kirby and as quick as he was, just knocking those those pages out for fun, and making money. I don't think I'd like to pencil all the time. I like doing the other things.
Yeah.
It's a different changes your day. It's a different mindset.
And that's a good point. What do you think is the most important thing on a comic then? Do you think it's not the story itself, but actually the technique? What is the strongest thing that you think about
I
a
think the
comic?
strongest thing is the art, because that's the first thing you see. You might
Mhm.
see it's called Fantastic Four, but when you've got all the silly blurbs on the side, they don't mean anything. They're
Yeah.
just scenery. It's the artwork. You see that, I think it's Fantastic Four 57,
Mhm.
where the Inhumans break free, that yellow cover where Black Bolt's
Yep.
there, and all the FF. I can remember exactly where I was. There was a place called Page's newspaper shop. Going to school, I was 12, and I walked in and I saw that on the rack. And I tell you now, I had money for my lunch. I didn't have any lunch that day.
Yeah.
I bought that comic. I didn't have any. Who cares? I had, and it's just one of the most wonderful covers I've ever seen. So that visual impact is the most important thing, and that's why the art is probably, the storytelling and the art is probably more important than the words, because the words only describe what's in the pictures. Now, all the writers will be on my back about that, and they may be right, but that's just my opinion.
No, I'm with you on that, because I think we've had comics that don't have any words in them, just pictures, and they've been huge sellers, and
Exactly,
everybody talks about it, and it's still, so I agree with you.
Because if you've got fantastic words and you don't have pictures, you've got a book, haven't you?
Yeah, right.
So it's a different thing.
Right. And that's, I think you're spot on. I think one of the things that we sell short on a lot of the story is and especially in book production, is the quality. I mean, obviously it can be, I don't think color is that important. I think that color on the cover is one thing, but on the interiors, like we talked about Frank Miller and that, I don't think it's that impressive. I think that you could do a black and white, and I think that sometimes it's more powerful in black and white.
Look
Not
at
just
Sin City and that sort of
Oh,
stuff.
that's what I mean. I mean, it goes, one of the best characters that is in Shadow is, Hellboy, but you obviously have the red, you've always got that red, but Batman's a prime example of having, light and dark.
Isn't it in Sin City? I've not looked at it for a while, where it's in black and white and one of the girls has blue eyes.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic way of using color.
So subtle.
But on the page, all you've got is blue eyes.
Yeah, right.
And it's the first thing you see. Apart from the fact that she's gorgeous, you see these blue eyes.
Sure.
And it's all thought. It's all thought about. That's not a mistake or an accident. That's
no. And you and I, one thing that we're talking about comic books and we're talking about production of that, and how many thousands of people are involved really in a production deal with it. Books are just as important. The first thing you brought out was the Watchmen book, the actual trade. That's something about hardback books, or something about there's something about them. Even though comics floppies are great, having a book that's made well is especially. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
To me, as a writer, right, not an artist, as a writer, I've always wanted a book. Books are real. Yeah, actually, that's right. No, thanks, Dave. Books are real to me when they're in hardback.
Yeah.
Softback, okay.
Yeah.
And I've just produced my first hardback, which we'll look at later, and it's really, I'm really pleased with it. It's really good. But just to hold it in hardback and like this Watchmen thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's substance there. Look at that. I think
it's about 250 pages. Yeah. It's just absolutely incredible. It's a fantastic book, but it's not as good as one we're going to show later on.
One of the books that this is I'm gonna tag Brian Rodman in this because it's going to drive him up the wall. So the last Ronin series and this is one of the things with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because in the 80s, black and white, late 80s, black and white, it was a very, just a different, grungy looking, dirty, inky, it was awesome. And I grew up on it. So the last Ronin series that I'm looking at right now, I mean, the quality of the book is just awesome. This one, though, is different because this is the designer archive. So, and like we were talking about earlier, this actually goes through, and the quality of the paper is great. It's kind of a standard now, but it goes through and it shows the breakdown of the
Wow.
thoughts of what Eastman
Yeah.
was trying to do. And that's what I like about uh, I mean, look at this. When you're brainstorming and you've got all these, this is
Oh
actually the
wow.
stuff that he got, like he was on his drafting desk, what he's trying to
Is that
accomplish in the series.
is
What's
that
that?
Hiroshima there?
No, no. This is oh god, this is this. Well, this is New York, but
Oh, right.
let's see.
Just
We
I saw
got
that Japanese gate thing. Yeah.
right, but all this stuff as far as just
Look at that.
the
But look,
ideas,
but look where he's dropped that yellow.
right?
How good is that?
Yeah, right.
That's not there by accident. That is
No,
good placement of color.
exactly. So, and that's what I mean, look at architecture. I love this kind of stuff. I just love
Yeah.
this world building like that.
I'll tell you, the best person at that kind of art is Will Eisner. You've
Oh
seen his
yeah.
stuff.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just,
Oh yeah.
it's just
Eisner's a king.
yeah.
But the development, like you were saying about the sketches and that, the character sketches, everything that's real. And I'm just using this as an example of
Yeah.
today's work. When I was a kid, they had the Marvel games and stuff like that, where you actually would have like all of the breakdown of each of the characters and what it wasn't hero clicks, it wasn't role playing, I don't think, but it was a game that they had, and it was a really cool book. And they would break down everything as far as the the powers of the hold on a second, sorry, my notifications are going crazy. They would break down all the different characters and what their specialties were, and what they could do, backflip, blah blah blah. And I'd love that kind of stuff. I just ate that up, and that's the one thing I like about that. Really me into finding out, because the first page, when you would open up a page, say from 1978 Spider-Man, you'd have the inside page, Stan Lee, blah 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 blah, whatever, and then you have the picture, the spread picture. I would never read the bottom. I would never read the fine print of the copywriter or any of the people that were involved in it. I would just go right to the next page.
Right.
Immediately, I don't know. So now I go back and I've really studied, the progression of where these guys were, whether it's Perez or whatever. And, it's really, that's a really fun part of collecting now, going back and really looking at and reliving what they must have been going through at that time, when Comic-Cons weren't Comic-Cons, they were,
Yeah.
They were conventions barely,
Well, it's like I said before. I think comics grew up, and there's all the conventions now, and all the cosplay, and all the films, and all the stuff. I know the sad part of that is that somebody suddenly realized they could make a lot of money off this.
Sure.
But who doesn't want to make a lot of money, So that's just a human thing. But
that's what it was. Thanks, Jody.
the game is handbook,
yeah, it was awesome. I love that thing.
But it's like I say, it's grown up now, and but I don't think, and I'm, as I'm old. I don't think it's necessarily improved as much as it might have done, because too many people copying what went before instead of looking forward, especially with Kirby stuff. I'm talking about the big people now, the Marvels and all this.
All right.
They're really resting on their laurels with his stuff and that kind of stuff, and just regurgitating it and revamping it. And
yeah, I think you're probably right. Pop culture in general. If we can segue a little bit, I know in Hollywood everything's a reboot, and that was one thing that they're looking. On the inside scoop, guys, they're looking for fresh, new intellectual property.
Yeah,
reboots are like right now they're a thing, because they were a year ago when they weren't writing. They weren't. Everybody was up. Everything was going on. You need to have new IPs out there to the world. You really do.
If you look at the Spider-Man, look at Spider-Man films. Does Disney own Spider-Man now?
Sony, I think.
Right?
Isn't it Sony?
I don't know. But
maybe you guys know. Let me know if you chime in.
That Disney put things out every 7 years to get a new generation of child.
Sure.
Right.
Makes complete sense. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it does. Yeah, from a business point of view. But I'm talking about from a creative point of view. That's what they seem to be doing with Spider-Man. You get Tobey Maguire for Spider-Man for 3 films over, say, 10 years. And then when he's too old or don't want to do it anymore, they get the next guy. But they have the Green Goblin in, and he gets bitten, and Spider-Man gets bitten by a spider. Well, we know that. Why don't they just advance the stories? And if people want to know how he got his powers, we'll go back and watch the Tobey Maguire one. That's my argument, because they're good films. So why not? Why did they just make it again the same thing? Tell the origin again. You know, it's what's the point?
Got it. Yeah, I mean, well, you're pretty practical though. I mean, not everybody thinks like you, so you
doesn't mean I'm wrong.
No, it doesn't mean you're wrong at all. I think that well, I mean, I didn't see the last one, but with all the hype and everybody's fan reactions, I felt like I've seen it. And that's crazy, you know, the way that the Omniverse, all that amazing stuff. But I don't know. I think that we're always going to have people that think back and say, man, it was better the first time it came around. Like the first Hellboy, I love Ron Perlman. I think he's great. I think the first two Hellboys were great. The David Hayner one, I own it. It's very true to the comic book, but it's flat out kind of gory. You know what I mean? So it's a little different. And I still enjoy Ron Perlman's versions.
I'm not saying that the new Spider-Man isn't as good as Tobey Maguire. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the story.
Yeah.
You know, what's the guy? The English guy was Spider-Man, and then there's a new guy. I'm not seeing the new one.
Yeah, the English gentleman, he's great. I really like him a lot. I like him as Spider-Man. I thought it was great.
So do I. But what I'm saying is that the story doesn't advance because he still has arguments with Flashman, and the girl is after the girl, and he gets bitten, and he fights the Green Goblin. Well, you know, fight somebody else, Mysterio
or something.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so let's go back to comics. And then we'll finish that up, and then we'll bring up some of the other stuff that we're going to be talking about. We're running in about almost an hour or so. But as far as comic books go, I mean, the technology's proven. It works. I think that there's definitely a future for books and digital in hand. I think that they're going to be enhancing to both. I think that you could probably buy a production, a book, and then also maybe put this in plastic, get it certified, whatever, so that you're not technically reading it, but it's worth a value. And then go on Comixology and read it. However, there's ways to do it so that you can.
I was going to say that anybody who puts a comic book in plastic, they need certifying, not the comic.
No. Well,
just read the damn thing.
It doesn't. Well, again, we're collectors, man. It doesn't mean I don't buy two of everything. I mean,
I'm joshing,
okay. You boomers, man. All right. Anyway,
we rule the world. Just think we begat you. Think about that. That's how good we are. We begat you lot.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Okay, so but as far as comic books go, I think that the technology is there. It's a proven technology. All of us enjoy it. We're all on here. We all enjoy it.
Well,
it doesn't matter how many people are involved in it.
Yeah, get into indie publishers like we are.
Yeah.
Apart from again, it goes back to the creative force again, because it always will. But that aside, which is obviously the biggest thing, but that aside, nobody has an excuse not to publish now.
I agree. And, I talked about it on Dastardly Dingoes a couple nights ago, and my show TED Talks, that I think that the future of conventions and everything else is going to be indie based. I'm going to tell you, I think in the next 10 years, people are going to be going to shows for indie creators versus DC. And I'm not saying that DC and Marvel aren't going to be plugged into what we're doing. I think they're going to try to get a little piece of action on that. I think that they're going to say, oh, well, hey, maybe we'll start up another sub company just for plugging into the indie comics scene. I'm telling you.
I think you're right, but I also think that what the big two will do is do what the big two did in the 80s with Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons and all the basically 2000 AD people, is offer them a lot of money to go and work for them, and I think that's what will happen.
Well, if they have the money, if they have it, I mean, the Marvel, I mean, obviously because of Disney and everything else, but if they've got it, I really see, like you were saying, I think that the publications, it's not going to be how you're publishing your book. It's like, oh, you're bringing a book out. Okay, cool. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter whether it won't even matter saying you're an independent anymore. It's just like, oh, okay, Ted's I got another book out. That's the way
Well,
it'll be.
that's why people like Mixam are going to cash in, because they've
Absolutely.
set up this, and they're worldwide now. They're in the States, America, sorry, in the States, Europe, Australia now.
Absolutely.
And they'll just print whatever you want.
And
They don't care what it looks like.
Consider mainstream. What we're doing right now is going to be common. And I don't think that we're going to get away from it. But I do think comics is a medium that, regardless of how it started, is going to evolve. Whether it's going to be in the technology that you're going to be able to interact with the books more, whatever.
It's basic human storytelling, and all this technology is just finding a way for the average person to tell a story and record their story and get it out to the masses. That's basically what it is. It's storytelling. It's like with social media. Everybody's suddenly got a voice that can be heard. People had a voice before social media. It's just that I couldn't talk to you about stuff.
Right. And I think that social media is a great tool. One thing it's people say, oh, it's terrible, whatever else. You know what? No, it exposed us for who we really are.
Yeah.
So you know what? Embrace it. Use it to your advantage and build something that's good.
It's like everything else. It's a two-sided coin. It depends what you use it for.
Exactly.
Simple as that.
Yeah. You can build a house with a hammer, or you can kill somebody.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to look at it. So I tend to build the house.
Yes.
So well, just letting you know. Okay. Okay. So speaking of building houses, you got a great week coming up. You guys, I want you to listen up, because Glenn's got some huge news. So we're going to start talking about that. Go for it, man. Tell them what you got going.
On Monday night on Pops' show, The Madness, I think it's 4:00 your time. So that's 9:00 my time. I'm going to be put on Indiegogo, finally, my Kirby book.
Awesome.
And it's all about my visits to Kirby, having lunch with him. It's I think most people will know all about it at the moment. It's finally out there, and like I said, it's a lovely hardback book, right? And also there is an updated version of this, which on the second visit I filmed a good 45 minutes of just talking to him, and I put this film out a few years ago. This is the final cut. This has got extra stuff on it. When it was released in 2017, it was shown to an invited audience in Oldham Theatre, and that was filmed, and that now appears on this. That's not been seen before. Nobody's seen it before, only me. And I'm really, really proud of this. It's been a long time coming, and it should have been out last year, but there were problems with it. But it's me and Jack.
It's, and this is I don't consider this an opus of yours, but I do think it's one of your symphonies. And I think that you've got, you have an opportunity, all of you collectors that are out there, and we're going to talk more about it. You're going to be Monday on Pops, but you're going to be on TED Talks next Tuesday at 10. And we're really going to do a deep dive into exactly what is going on with it. Tell everybody why you're doing it this way. Why are you shipping from the UK? Why are you building it there?
The reason I'm shipping from the UK is because I'm going to sign all the books, get it more personal. Because if I obviously send them out from America to America, I don't sign them. It's to me that's a step removed, and I'd like to think that it's people would like to own this and have me sign it, and that's the reason. It's going to be coming from me in the UK, worldwide. The postage
I'm sorry.
The postage is might be an issue with people, but the postage is what the postage is. You're always going to get stuck with that. I'm going to get it in. I'm to try and get this in Forbidden Planet over here, and various other shops as well. And I'm going to look into putting it everywhere.
Right. Well, when you come to the States,
really is unique.
Yeah. It is, and when you come to the States, we'll definitely we'll get that together, and we'll get you to sign some stuff, and we'll make sure that's promoted properly. But I think that, like I said, it's just going to complete the investment for everybody. I think that's really the collection that you want. The people that are Kirby fans. If you know one, or if you aren't one, find out more about it through this event that you're doing. you know.
What this contains is the
Sorry. Calypso's super excited. Let me mute this.
She wants a copy. This contains an interview with me talking about the film. It's got the film with me and Jack on it. It's got the Q&A, and it's also got a couple of other things, little outtakes on it and stuff. And it's got the original trailer, and it's got a like an overview. It lasts about, I think it's about 2 hours, hour and 3/4, the whole thing, and everything's on there. I think it's worth getting. If I didn't have this one, I'd buy it.
Right. Well, and I think, here's the deal. Everybody's got an opportunity to invest in it. And it's something that it's going to be signed. There's just a lot that's offered there. And there's things that I don't even know what's on the book. I mean, there's been things that I've been privy to that you've told me about, but I'm really looking forward to getting the copy and, having it in the library. And I'm glad that you're finally being able to do it. And I'm glad that people are taking notice of it, because it's history in the making.
It's unique. I've never seen any other film of Jack Kirby talking in his studio in his home. I'm not saying it's not there, but I've never seen it.
No. And that's, this is real life. I mean, it's Jack away from the table, which is great. Away from the desk.
He was fantastic as well. He's just a real person, he's just real.
Yep. And do you talk about Roz too in the book at all?
I always say this, and I'm not ashamed of it. Roz Kirby is one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, inside and out. She was absolutely fantastic with me. She didn't have to be. She welcomed me into her home. She fed me. She showed me artwork. She even gave me a crit on my artwork. And I was more worried about what she was going to say than what Jack said. But it was positive. So
good.
Fabulous.
Got some fans, David Houston and Joe D. You're global, baby. So and you've got a fan obviously that you're doing this show with. So and I'm looking forward to having you on TED Talks, and we'll deep dive it. We'll figure out exactly the ins and outs of the book, and
hopefully it'll get to you by Tuesday.
Oh, I can't wait. So I will be looking for it. It might even arrive today. Who knows? So with no further ado, I'm going to talk to just a couple more things, and then just do some legwork here. I'm going to be at Midland Comic-Con coming up, not this weekend, but the next, March 5th and 6th at Midland Mall in Midland, Michigan. We're looking forward to that. Paul King puts a great show together. So if you're looking for any of my original artwork, any of the prints that I'm going to be having out soon, I'll be putting those on. Actually, it'll be more so you'll be able to pre-order them, but you can pick them up at the mall. Hopefully you guys can go there. If not, you can get a hold of me directly. Then also at the end of March, March 24th, that weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Lexington Comic-Con down in Lexington, Kentucky with the Dastardly Dingoes. I'm going to be hanging around with those guys. So it'll be a really, really, really good time. I'm looking forward to it. In fact, one of them's on here. What's up, Chad? How you doing? In fact, Chad says another great thing about it. And Chad knows books, man. Let me tell you, this guy puts out a beautiful book, The Silence. Fantastic book. So check out what Chad's doing. But yeah, I mean, we got a ton of stuff going on this year. Check out everything that we're doing with Comics Unlimited check it out with Glenn B. Fleming on Amazon. Purchase those, because April's coming up soon, and we're going to have the first quarter of the book, or first quarter this year, we're going to have a book out on Amazon, and it's gonna be great. We're looking forward to getting all that produced. Anything else you got, man?
No, just to say that when this Indiegogo campaign starts, while I'm waiting for 3 people to buy it, I can get on with the Comics Unlimited and get working on that, and also working on getting my Hatch 2 out, which is ready. It's been ready now since before Christmas, but with all this different stuff, I had COVID and all this kind of stuff.
Sure,
it's put me back on all that, but I've got Hatch number 2 is ready to rock and roll, as I say.
Absolutely. And I know that the future's bright, man. You're gonna have to get some shades big time. So all right, in closing, we're gonna watch the Kirby promo. So you guys check out everything. Check out Pop Show on Monday at 4, and then check out TED Talks on Tuesday. Of course, tomorrow night we have Drinking with the Davies. Check us out at 7 o'clock. If you haven't seen it, the promo
best program online.
Christine's making this great drink. This great drink. I forgot the name of it now, but it's got a hookah and whatever in it. It's really, really good. So you guys check it out. And here we go with the Kirby promo.
When they mined an area, they put down yellow tape right across that line, see? And if you walk on the wrong side of that yellow tape, you blew up.
Strange Tales 136. I remember it very clearly, and that was my first exposure to Kirby. And I wanted to show it to people.
Good stuff, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that you're finally doing it. Pops is in the house too, apparently. Pops is in the so I know you guys are going to be talking on Monday, and then we're going to be talking on Tuesday about it. And of course, until this thing arrives, I can't wait. So once we get it, we'll do a nice little send off for you too. So thanks again for stopping in. Thank you, Glenn, as usual, for taking time out of your day to educate us on everything comics. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks again. Be good to everybody, guys. Do something good. Bye.
Welcome to the Comics Unlimited podcast with your hosts, Glenn B. Fleming and Ted Davis.